So Trump has won the election, and I want to talk about the immigration policies that we expect to come into place after he is inaugurated in January. So January 20th, we expect a wide sweeping change of immigration laws, and I want to talk about a few of them and what you may be able to do now to maybe help you, or what options may still be available. So the law is still in place, at least for now, and there may be some options that you can still pursue. But the big thing that I think is most recent that I want to talk about is parole in place. So that's the Keeping Families Together program. Kristin, what have you heard about what's going to happen with Keeping Families Together parole in place?
Well, it seems like it's on the chopping block. It's recently been ruled illegal. There might be an appeal on this, but that's probably not likely with Trump becoming president in just a few months.
Yeah, so the district court has ruled, and parole in place was ended by the federal district court judge. So it's possible that the current administration, so the U.S. Attorney's Office, could still represent the U.S. government, the current executive office, and appeal that denial of Keeping Families Together parole in place. They could appeal it up to the Federal Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, and from there they could go up to the U.S. Supreme Court. But the Fifth Circuit would just deny it anyway, so what's the point in appealing it? And then when the new president comes in, well, the new president is definitely going to end the program. So parole in place is dead in the water, so it's not really a possible option right now. But there's still other ways that people can get an admission. So, what do people need an admission for? You need an admission so you can do your adjustment of status. You can get the green card in the United States. You don't have to consular process outside of the United States. But the biggest requirement to get the green card in the U.S., the biggest requirement for adjustment of status, is that you have to have a lawful inspection, admission, or parole. So parole in place would give you the necessary parole so you could get your green card in the U.S. There's other ways to get the green card in the U.S. Kristin, what are some of those ways you can get the green card? What are some of the ways you can get that parole in the U.S. without leaving?
So one of those methods is military parole in place, which is a good way to segue into the next topic. Military parole in place, unfortunately, is one of the other things that may be greatly curtailed under the Trump presidency. What do you think, Patrick?
So military parole in place is where you have a family member that's in the military. So you have a veteran husband, or you have a child that's 18 and they decided to join the active branch of the reserves, the Army Reserves, or they're in the Navy or Coast Guard, or other form of branch of the military. And if you have an immediate relative that's in the military, then they say that you would be qualified for something called military parole in place. And that's another one. There has been some guidance that says people think it may not go away. Other people, they're not sure. So we don't know what's going to happen. But if you do have a relative in the military and you don't have an admission or parole, well, now is the time to get it. Any other ways to get parole?
So there's advanced parole if you have DACA. That allows you to travel outside of the country, get a legal entry to the United States, and then you would be able to adjust status without having to apply at a consulate abroad.
Yeah, DACA advanced parole was great, but you know who tried to end DACA? Trump tried to end DACA, the whole program. Would he allow DACA advanced parole? I doubt it. Maybe it'll stay around. There's regulations for it now, so it's a little bit more secure, but most people think that DACA advanced parole is going away. So you have about 3 months to try to get it. So if you have an urgent need to travel, well, then you should try to submit your application immediately, because President Biden is still ahead of the executive branch. It's still his policies. The Attorney General is still the one that's enacting those policies. So, you should try to get it while you can. You have the rest of November, all of December, and most of January. So it's possible you could still get a decision on your DACA advanced parole. So if you have the opportunity to file it immediately, then it may be something you want to talk to an attorney about. It may not be realistic, but it's something that you could consider. So DACA advanced parole is one. The other one that a lot of people are worried about is TPS advanced parole. What have you heard about the TPS advance parole?
Well, TPS advanced parole also allows you to leave the country, come back on advanced parole, which then makes you eligible to adjust status within the United States. And TPS has recently been expanded to include persons from Lebanon. So we're going to see whether that's going to be rolled back as well during a Trump presidency.
Yeah, so TPS advanced parole, there was an old policy memo that the Trump administration misconstrued, and they said that, oh, well, when you come back on a TPS advanced parole, you're not paroled. You're not paroled. We're going to say you weren't paroled. You're just coming back in as a TPS person with still no lawful entry. So it was this legal fiction that they said we're going to ignore the fact that you were paroled, and we're just going to ignore that and say that you weren't paroled. So if you have the ability to get TPS advanced parole, those days may be numbered as well. Other ways to overcome the issue of doing the necessary where you need the parole is the I-601A waiver. So that is expected to continue. We don't know if that'll go away or not, but that is the fallback to do the I-601A waiver. So that's where you plan a consular process, but you go ahead and get your waiver approved before you leave. So you get your relative petition approved, your I-130, and you also get your I-601A approved. So you have both approvals. You take both approvals to the U.S. consulate outside of the U.S. and you say, hey, I've already got my waiver approved. And then with both of those approved, they should stamp you with the immigrant visa and let you come back into the U.S. What else do you think might change, Kristin?
I mean, there's a lot that's going on. This has been a widely discussed issue. I mean, this is Trump's second presidency, so a lot of these things were already widely discussed and in the pipeline as far back as 2018. So the next topic that we can discuss is probably prosecutorial discretion.
Oh, prosecutorial discretion. So when Trump was president, he came out with this policy that said there's no priorities in immigration. We're not going to prioritize criminals. We're not going to prioritize terrorists. We're going to prioritize everyone, every single person, women, children, people with no convictions. They're all priorities. So that's what his memorandum said. He said everyone is a priority. So it didn't make any sense. And so that was axed in the Biden administration. Expect the all priorities, prosecutorial discretion to come back. So no one is going to be eligible for any kind of prosecutorial discretion. Prosecutors will no longer be able to exercise any discretion. They will have to enforce the full might of the U.S. immigration law. So even people that have been here a long time, maybe people that are taking care of sick relatives, maybe people that have many other equities in their life, they will no longer be eligible for prosecutorial discretion. So again, so this is kind of the big second issue we're talking about is prosecutorial discretion. Something you can do now to try to prepare for that is ask for your prosecutorial discretion now. And so some of the people that are in removal proceedings are people probably going to be trying to seek prosecutorial discretion the most. So if you're in removal proceedings and you're applying for something that's kind of difficult, you may want to talk with your attorney about if it's realistic to request prosecutorial discretion. Probably some of those people that are in removal proceedings and applying for something difficult, that's going to be people applying for asylum. Asylum can be difficult depending on what you're claiming asylum for. So if you're going to be persecuted based on your race, religion, political belief, national origin, or membership in a particular social group, those memberships in a particular social group, PSG, have been defined to include women that are men that are victims of domestic violence. So domestic violence currently qualifies. The other one that qualifies is family. And Kristin, what have you heard about the viability of domestic violence PSGs and family-based PSGs going forward into the Trump administration?
So those are very likely to be severely restricted. It already depends very much on which circuit you live in. You're very lucky if you're in the Ninth Circuit. Here in the Fifth Circuit, it's not so easy already. But we're very likely to see some adverse court decisions on this topic. All right, so one of the most controversial actions that Trump ever did was the infamous travel ban that he implemented on January 27th of 2017, shortly after becoming president. This was widely litigated and actually was passed in two different versions afterwards. And finally, on June 26, 2018, the Supreme Court upheld the third travel ban that Trump passed. So we're likely to probably see something like this again, especially considering all the politics and war currently happening in the Middle East. And with a fully conservative Supreme Court at the moment, I don't think there's likely to be very many restrictions on what Trump does.
And this, can hurt a lot of people. So it can hurt, immediate relatives. It can hurt people coming on business visas. Business visas are expected also to receive some additional restrictions, just like they did in the first Trump administration. So the biggest one that first comes to mind is called the no deference policy. There was a policy that if you file an application, let's say for an H-1B professional or an L-1 intracompany transferee, the Immigration Service would say, well, you already proved up everything. You already proved that you're a professional. You already proved that the companies are related and you have a managerial position or you have specialized knowledge. And so they created a policy says, well, we will give deference to our first decision, our first consideration of your application. You've already proved that up, and unless we have some reason to believe something else, we will give deference to our previous decision. We've already looked at it and decided that you were eligible. Why would we let another person come in and say, well, I disagree with that guy. I don't think the guy should be eligible. So that's what Trump did under his administration. He said, we will not give deference to any, if you ask two, people the same question, one says yes and the other one says no, well, then it's no. So that's the no deference policy, and that may be coming back. Any other business related changes you see in the future?
Possibly restricting H-1Bs in number. I think that is very likely to happen. After all, Trump ran on more of an isolationist United States. He garnered a lot of votes from workers in the United States, so this is something that could probably have popular support.
Yeah, so our firm handles many type of business visas. So we do these O1s and these national interest waivers, and those got a lot more difficult under Trump. So there was a lot more difficulties for the business world under Trump, and so expect that to come back. Things are going to be more difficult. There's also going to be harder barriers. One of the things that came under Biden just recently in this last administration was a 5-year validity to employment authorization documents. So those 5-year EADs, those are probably going to be gone under Trump. The other big one was interviews. What have you heard about interviews, Kristin?
Well, we're likely to get interviews for all adjustment of status applications in the future, which also creates a further backlog because we don't have the manpower to do this sort of thing.
Yep, so it's the interview waiver. When you file an adjustment of status application and they have everything they need to approve the application, instead of just approving it like you would think they would, they say, well, we require an interview for every single application. Even if we have everything and it looks like it should all be approved and it's clear that you're eligible, we will still require the people to come in and have an interview. So interview for all applications is probably coming back under Trump.
And one of the most discussed issues right now is the issue of denaturalization, which is another issue that cropped up, I believe, in 2019 in the news. So this has been in the works for a while. So possibly people could become denaturalized due to small errors in their previous applications, discrepancies, and also if they have a criminal history after they were naturalized.
So denaturalization, when you think that, you've been a lawful permanent resident for many years and you finally apply to become a citizen, usually you think you're home free, you can never be removed, and that's the way it's been for a long time. We don't deport U.S. citizens. And Stephen Miller, I think, a year or so ago, he came out with this tweet and said, we're going to ramp back up denaturalizations. Usually there's only like 5 denaturalizations a year. So that would be kind of scary to think that, people, even once they become a citizen, can never quite be sure.
Exactly. And I think ICE actually requested a budget to denaturalize 700,000 people in 2019, which is a huge departure from the 5 to 11 or so that are denaturalized every year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they pursue this policy in the future. And what you have to think about is that this is also a chain. So if you then received your green card or citizenship based on someone else's naturalization and that person is denaturalized, then that affects a whole chain of people.
That is all kind of options that the president can do from the executive level. So these are all based on administrative policies, executive policies, a memorandum from the executive branch that have happened in the Trump policy. So those are very easy, and those could all come on day one. So those could all come on January 20th. Something that no one knows and hasn't been changed since the 80s is rewriting the statutes. So it's possible that Trump and since the Republicans have won the Senate and the Congress, could rewrite the entire Immigration and Nationality Act. What have you heard about that?
It's possible. We just got news this morning that Trump has won both houses of Congress. So with the Senate and the House of Representatives, he has the power to rewrite the INA if there's cooperation among the Republican Party.
So Democrats still have the filibuster, so hopefully that's not going to happen. But things that have been floated are things getting rid of immediate relative classifications. So you may no longer be able to sponsor your relative as quickly as you can today. So if you have been putting off sponsoring an immediate relative, you may want to get that filed now so that you may have some argument that you should be eligible. So it may not be able to be retroactively applied to you, and no one knows what that law is going to look like if it even comes. The other thing that I've heard someone float is that they could get rid of birthright citizenship. So there's a whole load of things that could be changing under the Trump administration.
Yeah, so some examples, you could redefine the family members that are allowed to follow someone to the United States, to reunite the family. So for example, adult children who have children of their own or siblings could be cut from that, and they would no longer be eligible to get a green card based on their relative.
A whole host of things could be changing. The last one I want to talk is about naturalization. Naturalization may be getting harder. Kristin, what have you heard?
So it could be getting harder. One of the things discussed is that there could be greater scrutiny on the English language exams. So currently we have some exemptions based on age and the length of stay in the United States. So in the future, they could possibly require every single person to pass an English exam.
I've also heard that they could be increasing the questions. So it's 100 questions currently, and it's been 100 questions forever. But under Trump, he increased it to 123 questions, so he made it more difficult for people to study for the test, and so that could be coming too. The test could be getting a lot harder. So, what do you do now? Visit with an attorney. I'm Patrick O'Rourke.
And I'm Kristin Petkova.
Thank you so much for watching. Hit me up in the comments if you have any questions, or just give us a call. Thanks for watching.